The cop had seen enough. He ordered Walter into the car without bothering to ask what the young man was doing out on the street at such a late hour. In the officer's mind, Walter was clearly up to no good. But when Walter managed to catch his breath and explain the reason for his late-night walk, Officer Sean Gray's eyes widened in disbelief. As a seasoned officer, he thought he'd seen it all, but Walter's determination left him astounded. They drove in silence for 6 miles until Walter spotted the house in the distance. Relief washed over him. He had made it in time. Taningsai. Officer Gray. Walter stepped shakily out of the car. What he didn't know was that the surprises weren't over yet. Officer Gray walked Walter to the door and explained to the homeowner, Jenny Hayden, how the young man had travelled 14 miles, on foot to help her move. Jenny was stunned by his dedication. When the rest of the moving crew arrived, Walter got straight to work, tirelessly loading boxes into the van. Despite his exhaustion, he didn't slow down. Inspired by Walter's story, Jenny posted about his incredible determination on Facebook. In her post, she shared the events of that day, how Walter, whose car had broken down the night before, had started walking at midnight from Homewood to Pelham, determined to make it to his first day of work with the moving company, Bellhops.Jenny's. Heartfelt post went viral, and she started a GoFundMe campaign to raise $2,000 to help Walter repair his car. The community's response was overwhelming. The campaign exceeded its goal, raising over $32,000. But the story didn't end there. Bellhop's CEO, Luke Marklin, heard about Walter's actions and was deeply moved. He drove from Tennessee to Homewood and personally handed Walter the keys to his own family car, a Ford Escape. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Walter broke down in tears, stunned by the kindness and support of the community. Walter's story has since inspired thousands. Jenny's original post garnered over 2,000 shares and comments, with people praising Walter's perseverance and work ethic. One commenter wrote, "It's impressive how we often make excuses, but then there are people like Walter who don't let anything stop them." Another reflected on how many moments during that long, lonely walk Walter must have felt tempted to give up, yet he kept going. Walter's dedication has become a symbol of determination and resilience, inspiring the #movement. Be like Walter. Despite the attention and praise, Walter remains humble, saying, "I just walked." He dreams of becoming a Marine one day, and his incredible journey proves that he has the perseverance to achieve anything he sets his mind to. The cop car pulled up alongside him, but Walter kept moving forward, determined to make it. 10 miles to go and he'd be safe. He glanced at his watch and quickened his pace, his legs burning with every step. The car didn't leave. It continued to follow him, persistent and unrelenting. Walter had no choice but to push on. Walter had moved to Homewood, Alabama, with his mother after Hurricane Katrina destroyed their home, forcing them to rebuild their lives from scratch. They had hoped for a fresh start, but life hadn't been easy. At 20 years old, Walter was a student determined to help support his mother. When he heard about a job opening at Bellhops, a moving company 20 miles away, he decided to go for it. It was far, but he had his old car and was eager to make it work. After driving to the company, he was lucky enough to get an interview on the spot. He shook the hiring manager's hand and agreed to start the very next day. Everything seemed to be falling into place, until it wasn't. Just a few feet from his driveway, Walter's car gave out. His heart sank as he opened the hood, only to find smoke billowing out. The engine had died, and Walter knew there was no chance of reviving it. Of all the days for his car to fail, it had to be this one. He pulled out his phone, ready to call the manager to say he couldn't make it, but then he stopped. Walter was young and fit, and while walking 20 miles seemed impossible, he was determined to try. He keyed the address into Google Maps, only to see the disheartening reality. It would take him 7 hours on foot to get there. He had no money to repair his car and no backup plan, but he couldn't give up. His mother was struggling to make house payments, and they were on the brink of losing their home. Walter simply couldn't let that happen. So, he set his alarm for midnight, determined to make it. When the time came, he pulled on his most comfortable sneakers, threw on a jacket, and stepped into the night. The journey was grueling. By the time he reached the halfway point, his legs trembled, his feet burned, and sweat poured down his face. He had already walked more than 10 miles, and the toll was evident, but the thought of losing the job on his first day kept him going. He focused on one step at a time, pushing himself forward. At 4:20 a.m., with miles still to go, Walter noticed the flash of blue. A car had been following him, though he was too focused on moving to notice until now. The vehicle's lights flashed, and a siren gave a short warning. Walter's heart sank. This was for him. The cop car rolled up beside him, and a voice called out, "Where are you rushing off to, buddy?" The officer, exhausted from a long night on patrol, wasn't in the mood for trouble. Walter, gasping for breath, tried to respond without slowing his pace. He was painfully aware that time was ticking, and he still had a long way to go.